Welcome to the latest GESS Talks webinar. We'd like to thank everyone for logging on and listening today. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Wand. Wand provides a secure and easy to use data management solution used by over 22,000 schools globally. Schools are provided with a single platform to manage their data, students, classes, teachers, etc., with third-party applications, while safe in the knowledge that security is the utmost priority. To find out more about their solutions, visit www.wand.com. You can also follow them on Twitter at WeAreWand, and it's WONDE. And I'll also pop this up now so you can see more information. So just while that's up, a few bits of information about the webinar before we get underway. For all our attendees, you can find a control panel on the side. There's a Q&A tab where you can find further information from the panelists, and also feel free to use the Q&A and ask us any questions. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'll do our best to get through them. If we don't manage to get through them all, the system saves them down and we'll get back to you after the event. If you want to enjoy the webinar all over again, you can do so, as we'll be uploading it to our YouTube channel and also our website, guesseducation.com. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our chair and moderator, Rachael Edgar, Group Head of Curriculum Design, Aldar Education, to introduce the rest of the panel. Thank you, and over to you, Rachael.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you also to the GESS team for inviting me to chair this this afternoon. I'm sure it will be a very rich and stimulating discussion over the next 45 minutes or so. Huge thanks to our speakers and to everybody who's joined us from all over the world today. Very honoured to be joined by a highly experienced panel of education thought leaders from across the GCC, different curricula and also different country experiences over the last 12 months. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing their thoughts and their reflections as we look through the rearview mirror over the past 12 months, and also as we look ahead and keen to hear their plans for next academic year and beyond. Before we get there, I'm just going to give a few lines of introduction for each person. So ladies first, we have Vanessa Way. Vanessa is a graduate from Cambridge University. She's been in education for over 25 years. She's led projects in Spain, Panama, Middle East, and she has been an international head of school for over 16 years. She's the founding principal and the current principal of Durham School for Girls, which is the first British all-female school and campus in Qatar, Doha. Iain Colledge. Iain is from the UK. He's lived in the Middle East, Asia and Central Europe. He's over 20 years of leadership experience and has led schools in the UAE, Libya, Thailand, leadership positions also in Bahrain and Jordan. Iain is a qualified Ofsted inspector, which we won't hold against him, but he has many years of inspecting schools in the UAE. And he's currently the executive principal of Al Raha International School, which is in Abu Dhabi. I did say congratulations to Iain earlier. If you have seen and you're a social media frequenter, you will have seen that he's been appointed as the Director of Education for the Talim School Group and overseeing their premium schools. So congratulations to Iain on his role. Kai. So Kai was a teacher and a school leader in the UK before being appointed as principal of the British School of Muscat in 2011. Kai is quite rightly proud of all that he and his school community have achieved over the past few years. So outstanding in BSO inspection, International School of the Year, British International School of the Year, High Performance Learning World Class School, and they even feature in the World Education Forum's School of the Future publication for their curriculum innovation. John, last but not least, is from Bonnie, Scotland, and has been coaching, teaching and leading in primary schools for over 10 years in the Middle East. Prior to this, he worked with young people in a variety of roles, both in the UK and the US. John is currently deputy head at primary at the British International School of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, very passionate about taking a research-informed approach to school improvement, and he has a Twitter account called Superb Schools, which I definitely recommend you following, where he uses this to promote teaching ideas, best practice research from all over the world. So that's the introductions out of the way, and let's get quickly to the first item on our agenda this afternoon, which is lessons learned over the last 12 months. It has been another roller coaster. We've just been talking a little bit before this webinar began, and that this year has continued to present us with obviously some considerable challenges for us on a global level. And if I think back to the start of this academic year, I was actually in a different role and working as deputy head teacher in a school. Some of those challenges, the health, keeping people safe, mental health, well-being, moving from what was for us 100% distance learning provision to a more blended mode of delivery for this academic year, being able to obtain reliable and valid assessment data, etc. The list does go on for those challenges. So I'd be really interested to hear from the panel what they feel their biggest challenge has been this year, the lessons that they've learned, and what's worked well and what maybe not so well this year. I'm going to continue with the theme of ladies first. So Vanessa.
Hi, thank you. I think our biggest thing that we've learned this year is that we can do it. I think, you know, if somebody had said to us a couple of years ago, this is what education was going to look like now, people would have run a mile. But we can do it. And I think that's been our motto all the way through this year. Whatever it's been thrown at us, whether it's been hybrid, whether it's been face-to-face, whether it's been blended, you know, suddenly having to change from on a Thursday night where we've had children in school to a Sunday morning where children are not allowed to be in school again. It's that flexibility and that resilience that I think we've built up this year. I think what's worked well is communication with parents. I think that's something that we've really developed, and the understanding between the school and the parents as well. I think that has had to be something that has really made a difference to us this year, because it has got to be a partnership. We've relied on parents to get the girls logged in and to do all of that sort of thing. And parents, I think, have got a greater understanding worldwide of what teachers actually have to do. And I think that's been one of the big things. One of our biggest challenges, I think, is keeping the girls engaged and adapting to those needs of when children are at home, are at school through blended. And we have had children that have been online 100%. You know, so having all of those different balls that you're juggling, you've got kids that have been in school, you've got kids that haven't been in school, you know, has been a real challenging thing for us. And I think for everybody worldwide. But I think learning how to use the technology, learning that we can do it, and learning that, you know, we can build upon everything that we've done is the biggest takeaway from this year.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with you. It's been absolutely inspiring and humbling working in schools over this last 16 months, really, even the last 12 months, to see what everybody has coped with. Kai, about your challenges this year.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Vanessa. Well, without wanting to repeat what Vanessa said, I would agree with everything that she just said. I mean, I think it's easy to underestimate the challenge to online and then to blended learning. But I would go as far to say that's probably been the biggest transformation, and the word is overused, but it is the biggest transformation I've experienced in my career. I imagine it's the biggest transformation, I think, since schools were conceived. Because what we've probably all had in our schools is we've not only made that transformation, and the teachers have, you know, the professional learning of not just the teachers, but all the staff in schools has been absolutely phenomenal, and nobody's been left behind. So the professional learning has been absolutely incredible. And what we've got, and I'm sure this still might be the case in many of our schools. I mean, yesterday I just did a quick check. I had students not just learning in Oman, but learning in 35 different countries around the world. And if you'd have said to any of us 18 months ago, right, tomorrow we want you to set yourselves up so you can teach students anywhere, anytime. And we just wouldn't have believed that was possible to do that so quickly. So I think there has been a challenge, and I'm really pleased, I guess, right across certainly the international school sector, what I'm hearing, what schools have done to rise to that challenge. But I think what we mustn't forget that, again, speaking to teachers and school leaders in recent months, I think going through that transition has been really, really tough at times. And I've lost count of how many school leaders I've heard went, for example, last summer through a really, really tough time. And I think that was right across the education sector, wherever you may be in the world. So I think it's been tough on teachers. I think it's been tough on school leaders. I think it's also been really tough on families, students, parents in the community. So there's been some amazing success. And I'm really excited by a lot of the innovation that has emerged, and then the possibilities that throws up. But the impact that what we've been going through has had on students and has had on our colleagues and has had on our community, I don't think we should underestimate that. And there is quite a lot of talk about there. You know, the next crisis is the crisis of mental health globally. and I don't think we should underestimate the scale of what we might have to deal with there, and what we're already starting to deal with.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there as well. I mean, the mental health, I think dealing with uncertainty, we've still got uncertainty in the world at the moment, you know, for students and for staff. Many of our staff were from the UK, not knowing whether you can get home this summer to see family. Some people haven't seen their family maybe up to 2 years. So I think that's really, I think, quite right there. So, you know, that will be perhaps that next crisis. I was actually chatting to a principal of a nursery the other day, and she reminded me, for those students of a young age, this is all they've ever known. This is their normal. They don't know any different. Those students are in the early years. Their teachers wear a face mask. And it really will be you know, interesting to see how that pans out. John, you're primary focused. What have you noticed with the younger students?
Yeah, well, just for context, in Saudi Arabia, campuses have been closed since March 2020. So we've had this academic year remote learning pretty much completely, and last year for a term and a half. So it's been a long, elongated, protracted remote learning program that we've been following. So keeping going as parents, as teachers, as leaders, just keeping going through this long period of remote learning, I think it's been one of the biggest challenges for us here in Saudi Arabia. And also planning and preparing for things that we've never done before. It takes much longer to plan and get things ready that obviously we've never done before. And this, obviously, for leaders and teachers and parents as well at home, trying to manage work-life balance and children at home at the same time can be really, really challenging, whether they work in the community and outside of schooling, or they are maybe 2 teachers at home. So I think that's been a really, really difficult and challenging thing for everyone. But we've learned to be agile, resilient and responsive, and making sure that we follow the evidence as much as possible. We've looked across the world to the Far East and the Middle East, across all these different schools that are here today and beyond that, just to see what people have been doing, to gauge what works, what solutions maybe have been found already, and then trying to make that context specific for ourselves here in Saudi Arabia. The balance between synchronous and asynchronous. How do we work with children in the younger years in smaller groups, online, and if we get them in school, which we've been fortunate to have a little bit of face-to-face once a week, then how do we work on well-being and hands-on gross motor skills, fine motor skills, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's been a really challenging situation for everyone here in Saudi Arabia, but yeah, like everyone else has said, people have met that challenge and gone beyond that as well.
Yeah, and I think certainly crisis does breed innovation. I would be keen to learn from you about assessment. I mean, obviously for a lot of your schools, a lot of it has obviously taken place online. And how have you kind of navigated that challenge, having reliable data on students in order to be able to
we in the primary
forward?
school, we actually have a suite of different assessments that we use, from STAR assessment, which is Renaissance learning, STAR Reader, STAR Maths, early literacy, and so on. And of course, there's the day-to-day practice that you see, observational assessment that you would have in the younger years, and so on. And then moving into secondary school, we've had some examination groups coming into school more recently to have face-to-face assessments, whether that's GL and so on and so forth. So yeah, we've had a few more recently in the summer term face-to-face assessments that we've managed to do. So obviously the degree of validity is higher there, but the rest of it has been online as much as possible through Google Classroom, through all the different means that we have at our disposal. So yeah, less degree of validity beforehand, and obviously a higher degree when we are in person and we can observe during wellbeing days, or what we call small groups on campus. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Iain, your biggest takeaway?
I think a couple for me, really. I mean, our context, I actually thought many of the schools in the Middle East were similar to us. Abu Dhabi is relatively restricted, but we've been open since September with some partial or full closures along the way when cases have crept up. So we've had, actually, dare I say, a more normal year than I think with most of the people in this webinar, which has surprised me. But I think from that, some of the biggest takeaways for us about communication. I've never seen anything move so quickly and so fast, getting told at 10 p.m. that the school's closed the next day, and those sorts of things, which are very, very, very difficult to deal with. And it's no one's fault. It's the protocols that are put in place. But one of the things that we've learned in terms of communications, particularly right back in the beginning, when I'm sure we're all sitting there on WhatsApp groups, getting hundreds of messages a day, telling you, have you heard this rumor, have you heard this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and everyone wants to be the first to spread the news out to their families and their community. And we learned quite quickly that actually it's better to communicate slower. Make sure that the information you're receiving is firstly legitimate. Don't listen to the newspapers. Get it from the authorities. Secondly, that what you're going to do with that information, and then decide how you're going to pass it on. Because we were finding lots of other schools, and we're just sort of getting a tweet, forwarding it to their families, getting a tweet, forwarding it to their families, and it caused all sorts of confusion. So we very quickly said to our families, we will not ever be the first school to communicate. In fact, we'd be quite happy to be the last, but we will give you accuracy. And that was a really big thing for us. And I've always been quite keen on fast communication, but slow communication actually became far more important. The other thing I think we learned a lot was, contrary to every single leadership management book in the world, and I'm sure our own practice is, it's actually important that you can't always involve all stakeholders in decision making. Even though you want to have your ear to the ground and know what they think, you can't do a survey for everything. You can't ask everyone for every decision. You've just got to make and explain yourself away. Now, I think that can be the case in a normal, normal operations anyway. But in COVID times, you just had to get on with it and explain yourself, and just get the people hopefully to trust you, get the community hopefully to trust you on the journey. So those are the two biggest things for us, I think, making sure communications were slow, and sometimes not involving absolutely everybody, because it was too complicated.
Couldn't agree with you more there. Communication has been really key, and I think connection is another. What I noticed from those few months of distance learning going back into school, probably been the most or the least restricted, I should say, out of everybody on the panel this year, was the importance of human connection and how you make connections with people. I think if you were to ask teachers what they were most worried about, they would be worried about the well-being of their students and also their students' literacy. So I'd also be interested to hear, what you've done to sort of try to navigate that as well. What have you done for well-being in your communities, and also to try to halt the decline in literacy. Vanessa, sorry.
Sorry. I think that, in terms of well-being, it's something that none of us can deny has affected the whole school community. But I also think that we need to support people. We need to make sure that they are okay, and we also need to move on. I think that's one of the key things as well. We are going to see a lot of issues with mental health. We are going to see a lot of issues with well-being, but we also need to keep moving on. We've got to get through this, and we've got to get over this as well. And I think that is absolutely key, to try and support people, but also keep that momentum moving forward. And I think that, in terms of in schools, things that we've done in schools, we've had drop-in sessions, we've had clinics for parents to just drop in and have a chat. We've had drop-in sessions for students. We've had students that have been frightened to come back to school when they've been able to come back and chosen to stay online. And all of those different things, I think, have really impacted learning. And I think in terms of literacy, that's one of the hardest ones to have overcome to some extent, especially with little ones, with those fine motor skills, with the reading and the writing, and actually being able to look over their shoulder or write in the sand with them and all of those sorts of things. I think there's been a real challenge. But I think, two things that we've taken away from here is, as I said, we can do it. We've got to work together, and we've developed new skills that we never thought we had. Okay, our little ones can't write as well as they did before, but I never expected a 5-year-old to be able to log onto a computer, upload their own work, and access a program. So I think there's skills that we have developed and skills that we need to go back and reiterate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to come in, Rachel? And
yeah, sure, Kai, yeah.
I mean, when I was a teacher and I looked up at other head teachers, I thought, I'm not sure I could be a head teacher because I'm too soft, and head teachers have to be hard. And I think what's really come to the fore in the last year, and I don't think you'd find too much of this certainly in my leadership training and preparation for leadership, is that empathy and compassion and kindness have had to become front and centre of how we operate, because so many of our colleagues and our students and our families have been going through such a difficult time that we've had to show immense compassion, empathy, and kindness, and that can take its toll on us, because that takes a lot of energy to do that at times. And then I guess to build trust, even more trust across our communities. I mean, we're very fortunate. We've been very fortunate position in the last year where we've been able to take advantage of where we have been in Oman, and we've allowed on 3 occasions our staff to travel in October and in December and this month to work outside of Oman for a period of time, so that can help them to deal with the quarantine issues they've got to deal with and go and see family and loved ones. And again, for us to have, I mean, at the moment, I've got 50 of my colleagues working in different locations around the world, and I can trust them to do that, and they're doing it in an absolutely brilliant way. But for us initially to take that step of trust to allow the staff to do that, that's an example where we had to put their well-being first, and we had to trust them to do that. And I'm really pleased that we've been able to do that, because that's really helped deal with the travel frustration which has plagued much of the expat community for much of the last 15 months.
Okay, what I'm going to do is move on and look forward. We've had a few questions in the chat box about what schools are doing to look forward and to what the priorities are, how different schools are looking at addressing gaps in learning. Undoubtedly, if we're getting more students back face to face, we're able to get that accurate and valid and reliable assessment data, and then looking at how we might address those gaps. John?
Yeah, really good question. More recently, over the last month or so, we've asked our middle leaders to look at their own area, whether it's a year group, a department, a curriculum area, and see what they can gauge from the online programme that we've been running, and obviously the engagement and the attendance and so on and so forth, to see what we can do coming into September, October, November next year to address anything that we think is lacking, or an area that we want to develop further, whether it's fine motor skills and gross motor skills, or it is handwriting potentially, because children have not had that chance as often to write for a prolonged period of time potentially, so they've not got that automaticity or just that stamina, I guess, to write for a longer period of time. And of course the hands-on practical activities in DT, art, science, investigative science. We've been giving opportunities for children to have an investigative opportunity, but if they do not have the resources at home potentially, and we cannot get them to them, then obviously they have to have another option which is more theory-based and so on and so forth. So yeah, we've really asked a lot of our leaders to just sit back, take stock, and think about what can we do moving into next year to really address potential areas that we want to develop further. Yep.
And Iain?
Yeah, I think interestingly, our situation may be slightly different again. I mean, we were obviously put in lockdown in March, like everyone, through to the summer. Then we had initially primary children came back in September, and with the diploma students, and then the rest of the school later. But there's been sort of various combinations of grades allowed in over the time, so it hasn't been consistent. But I think we've been in school more than the rest of my colleagues. But I think for us, during the whole thing, we have actually we did some sort of pie in the sky assessment initially to see, do we think the children are suffering or struggling or doing okay? And then when we got them back, we went through regular assessment cycles as well. And we actually found that about 70% of our students were doing exactly what we expected them to be. They were right on the money. And about 20% were doing better. And those students tend to be doing better because they had more time to concentrate. They may have been more introvert students who work better alone, less interruptions in classroom, and they've really, really enjoyed working independently. And about 10% of the students didn't do as well as we expected for a number of reasons. Sometimes they found it hard working independently, maybe didn't get the support at home, and various other things. But all of them along the way, our teachers, there was an awful lot of one-to-one time, partly for well-being, partly for education reasons, but we track those students very, very carefully. And since we've all been back in school, we've found that that's picked up, and we have no concerns actually about where the children are at generally, which has been a testament to the teachers and how well they've succeeded in online learning. And I imagine, many of the colleagues on this and people listening in feel partially the same, particularly the older students. The older students have easily adapted. Whereas you got your 4 and 5 year olds, we talked about drawing in the sand and things. Teaching that and teaching collaboration and play online is virtually impossible. Let's be honest. You can do your best, but it's never quite the same. So we've relied on parents an awful lot for support as well. But it's then when we get them back in, we just really push very hard, and it's been quite an interesting process seeing where they're at. But we've been quite pleased that we don't think any child's been left behind, really, which is a great, really, testament to the teachers and the incredible efforts they've done into honestly sort of 10 p.m. twist, going from in school to home and vice versa. It's been quite tricky.
I think that's a really important point to note, actually, Iain, that lots of kids have flourished under this new model of education, and actually it's a real opportunity.
I would say though, Rachael, sorry to interrupt you. I would say that whilst some of them have flourished, it's absolutely not what we want to continue in any way, shape, or form. I think it has been successful in many ways. There are many parts of the world where it won't have been successful at all, particularly because if they've got IT issues, people don't own iPads or laptops, or maybe the teachers haven't had the skill set to be able to manage it. We're very fortunate, I think, in all of our schools on the panel, that we probably have the skill set to be able to manage that, and our parents have got literally the money to be able to afford the technology. But I think regardless of everything that's happened, we want the kids back in. We want them face to face. We want them socializing. We want them bouncing ideas off each other. Facial expressions, body language, they matter an awful lot. And getting them back in and interacting and communicating and arguing and laughing and socializing and problem solving, that's the real key to learning. So that the sooner we get them back in, the better, irrespective of how well distance learning has been for a number of schools. Yeah, absolutely. And that brings me nicely to what would my next question actually, and what do you think is the most effective model then for education? Is it face-to-face? Is it distance? Should it be blended? Kai, I'm going to come to you because I know you're on the blended journey, probably pre-pandemic. So I've done a bit of reading about your school. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it depends on the student, and like Iain's just said, there are probably a minority of children who've actually preferred the online learning, but I think for most children, or for majority of children, the face-to-face experience is the best experience, but it doesn't mean it's the only experience. And yes, we were planning a blended learning model. We started planning that in November 19, where we didn't have the budget for our partner school down Salalah. That's 1,500 kilometres from Muscat, so quite a remote area. We had 7 children who were moving into year 10, and we had a maths teacher and English teacher. So how do you create a key stage 4 curriculum out of that? In a traditional model, you can't. And those students used to leave, and their entire family would have to leave Salalah because there was no key stage 4 provision. So what we were able to do with the English and maths teacher, plus remote teaching from our science team in Muscat, plus Century Tech using their independent learning program, you put that together, so it's a third face-to-face, a third online from Teachers in Muscat, and a third independent learning, and we've got a key stage 4 curriculum for the same price as those parents were paying in year 9. So while that might not be ideal, that was better than the alternative that existed at the time, which was no key stage 4 provision at all. And that's working well. We're rolling that into year 11 next year, and we've got another year 9 moving into year 10 to follow that. So that might not be ideal, but it has meant that for those families and those children, that they've been able to stay where they're very happy. I think it's also throwing up, I think the blended learning option and the online learning option is throwing up models like that, but it's also throwing up ways to support our expat communities in ways we wouldn't have thought of before. So we just had a board meeting last night to approve, as British School Muscat policy now going forward, that if students, and there'll probably be quite a lot of these in September, who have signed up to our school, but they're out of country, so they can't attend the school just yet, but they let's say that they might be arriving in October or November when the visas get through or whatever, they can join their class online. So we're calling that soft start. So they're not sitting in Germany or South America waiting to get the place. They can join the class online. And we're also applying that principle to soft finish. So we've got a number of students who know they're leaving Oman at the end of this term, but they're not quite sure where they're going to be. And there's quite a lot of anxiety involved around that. So we've been saying to those parents, okay, it doesn't matter where you are, you can continue with online learning BSM, because all our classrooms are set up for blended. All our classrooms now are set up so a teacher can teach 20 odd kids in school and a number of kids out of school. So we've also got this soft finish option. So the soft start and the soft finish, that now enables us to support the mobility and some of the anxiety that goes along with that mobility of expat families as they transition around the world. So again, those models aren't ideal, but they help support the movement of our online families. So I think it is starting to generate ways in which we can actually support our communities in ways maybe which 15 months ago we wouldn't have thought were possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've made a good point there about choice. I think that's what blended learning and these new models for education have offered students, that choice in what they learn, when they learn it, how they learn it, not bound by time or physicality, as you've explained there. So I think, yeah, we're probably all in agreement that face-to-face connection is needed, but you've got these extra blended learning models that I think can really support and help, certainly for those parts of the world, as you've said, which drive forward and require it. John, what's the future look like in your school?
Well, obviously it depends on what the Saudi authorities say over the next month or two. We're still waiting on some guidance, but we have a roadmap, which is traffic light, green, amber, red. We've been in the red, obviously, this year with a bit of amber, and we're hoping to be green as of September, so face-to-face again. However, we will still have a lot of online facilities, so remote assessments for admissions, online or in person. We've been doing them all online for the last 12 to 18 months. Online Arabic for our Tabuk and Taif campuses, which are quite a bit away, 13 hours or 8 hours, 10 hours away from here. So we can have Arabic teaching across in those schools from either this campus or somewhere else. And then recruitment, so all the recruitment that's been done this year for our new COO, that's going to be for the 5 campuses of the BISR organisation. Usually that would be in person, but due to the situation, we transferred that to the online platforms, and that was a 2-day process with all the usual kind of tasks and so on. So yeah, we are going to be between worlds, I think, and having that blended option or hybrid option is going to be there for the foreseeable future, I think, yes.
And yeah, just this is a question really to schools that have been operating a hybrid model this year. What we've had a question in the panel. What the ideal IT setup you've learned for that. So I'm not sure. Put your hand up if you've been hybrid this year or done any hybrid where you've got students in front of you, you've got students somewhere else as well. Vanessa, the ideal setup.
I think having 2 cameras has been the best thing to do, because when you've got children in front of you, you're automatic. As a teacher, you're automatically moving around, and using your hands and all of those sorts of things, and gesticulating to the board, and and involving the children. And of course, then when we first started to do hybrid, teachers were forgetting that there was this little group on screen, and they kept running back to the computer and saying, "I'm so sorry, I forgot you." And I think making sure that you've got the correct cameras in the school, so that you can see that, and that children can see each other as well. We found that was really, really important. We have the children that are at home up on the board, so that the children in the class can still see their friends, as well as them seeing the people in the class, because then they're beginning to think that they are a class. They're not alone. They may be at home, but they are part of this unit. They are part of that learning. And I think the other thing is, cameras, making sure that they can see each other, and the pace of the lesson to allow those children at home to answer as well, because you automatically, have got those kids in front of you with their hands up, and you forget about those little hands that are coming on screen.
And a real challenge with the little ones. I mean, I come from a senior school background, and I've been teaching hybrid this year myself. And yeah, for me, I was forgetting about the people in the classroom. I was getting so engaged and engrossed with those students who were at home, and making sure they were engaged and connected to the learning. So I definitely agree with everything that you've said there. And it does work for early years.
But I think even with the seniors, I mean, our senior school went the other way, exactly what you're saying, and lessons actually became very chalk and talk and flat. and that isn't what we were about. That isn't how we were doing learning, but suddenly that was the approach that we took. So it's making sure that you have got that technology to be able to move around and deliver inspiring lessons.
Thank you. That's great. A very interesting point in the chat, which I'd like some comments on. Certainly got my own thoughts, but thank you, Mohammed, who says that the pandemic is a double-edged sword, taking into account that it gives us access to technology, online meetings and webinars. But on the other hand, do we see it will result in the death of education and teachers being replaced in the future? Iain?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
Go on.
Very simple to answer. I do believe schools will rebound to a relative normality, thinking back to whenever it was 18 months ago. I think there is that you can do online, and I think it has its purpose and has its use. But I think getting the children back in school with their friends, collaborating, playing sports together, performing arts together, I think we'll bounce back very well. Not so much, but very quickly, depending on your country and depending on vaccine programs and everything else. But so I think most teachers will want it to bounce back as quick as they can. I think one thing though that will change, which I probably should have mentioned earlier, is I think out of this, one of the biggest learning moments that we hopefully have in our profession, and it just takes someone to take it forward, and there are companies doing this, is the opportunities to teach people in, let's say, the third world, where there are remote schools where maybe technology is poor, but putting internet in there, and you think of the quality of the education has been delivered online from our schools, and why can't that be accessed by children who don't have access to the sort of schools we have, or the sort of the teachers that we have, or that live remotely? I think there is an opportunity here to give back. I think if we really look at things, the students we have in our communities have done fine. Yes, it's been challenging. Yes, they need to show a lot of resilience. Yes, there's been wellbeing issues, but I think they've done as well as we can expect. But there are thousands, millions of children elsewhere who will have struggled. And I think if we as humanity can take that opportunity to deliver online teaching and learning to children who don't normally get the quality that we provide, I think that's something we've got to take forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And also, I think giving students within our schools the opportunity to become more globally aware and work with students and teachers from other parts of the world as well. I think it really opens that opportunity. Yeah, my response to that question, absolutely. I mean, there was certainly talk a few years ago that technology would replace teachers, but I definitely think that's an absolute no. I think the pandemic has proven that more than anything, that human connection matters. I also think bricks and mortar matter as well. I think specialist spaces can't be replicated at home. Science labs, sports halls, maker spaces, drama theatres. So actually, I don't think school buildings will go. I think that physical space will also remain. But as you say, we'll take those opportunities from the blended learning, ensure that we continue to innovate. What about? I've had lots of questions in the chat as well about professional development and building capacity in staff, and what your plans are for that this academic year. Kai.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'll answer that question. I mean, I think the question about teachers not going, the bit I'd add there is that we brought parents more closely into the action, more fully than ever before. And if you told a lot of our parents that teachers were disappearing, they'd be absolutely horrified. I think that's been a positive as well, is that a lot of parents have seen in their living room the wonderful skill and professionalism of our colleagues, and they're desperate to have their kids back in school working with those teachers. That's been another positive. So professional development for next year. I'm really excited about this, and I'm really glad you've asked, because we've just started to create the conditions where we are going to establish a coaching culture. And another example of the professionalism of our colleagues is that more than 40 of my staff stepped forward to give up effectively 2 full days of their own time to get coaching skills training in the last couple of months, completely voluntary, because of what they want to act as a coach in this new coaching culture that we're developing. So we're going to ditch judgment of teachers, like a lot of schools in the UK did a long time ago. No graded lesson observations, no lesson observations, but yes, colleagues in each other's classrooms supporting each other in a coaching culture. And I've been thinking about this for at least 2 years. It's been a bit like the Einstein thing, spend 55 minutes analysing the problem and 55 minutes solving it. So I've been thinking about it a lot. I've done a lot of research into it, and I am really excited about this because I think it does create a coaching culture as a means to support all my colleagues develop and improve. I think will transform the professional learning of coaching in my school, which is already incredibly positive. But I'm so excited by the potential for this to enable colleagues who are already fantastic teachers to become even better teachers. So yeah, I can't wait to get going on that and sort of start sharing our progress with that with the wider education community. But there are other schools doing that, and I think basically the nub of it is the potential for coaching to realise human potential. And as someone who's been coached myself in recent years, I've just seen it, and I'm absolutely convinced that it's the way that we should be working with our colleagues to help them get even better.
Absolutely. Vanessa?
I think John, you're right. I think coaching is a great way. We do a lot in our school, and it's really interesting to see how that culture can develop. I think one of the things that we want to develop in the school as well is being realistic. You can bombard, you can start every inset, especially when you're changing this technology, of, okay, this is how we're going to do this is how we're going to do this, we're going to do this. You're going to have more training on technology, you're going to have more training on this. And, teachers are exhausted, and they've done a great job. They will continue to do a good job. And I think that we're going to start the year being realistic about what we're going to be doing, and also being looking at the fact that we want to start with a different mindset. I don't want to talk to my school about filling in the gaps or catching up, because as soon as you say that, people are going to be starting on the back foot. If you're starting saying, right, you're going to start this year and you've got a lot of catching up to do, those kids are going to start, they're just going to be disengaged very quickly. And so are the staff. If the staff know that they missed some gaps last year, or those children coming up from their class hadn't done as well as they could do, again, morale is going to have a huge impact. So we want to start this year like Kai, we're a high performance learning school, with the attitude that everyone's going to start fresh. We're going to be realistic, we're going to have our goals, and that is what we're going to work on in terms of the capacity of the staff, capacity of the school.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the language that we use in schools is particularly important. Yeah. I certainly felt that at the start of this academic year when we were back face to face, that, I actually remember having a slide in front of the staff this is how we're going to frame our language. And when we're talking about to not put the staff on the back foot, but also the students coming back after that long extended period of time of being at home. We are coming near to the end of the webinar. I've had a very interesting question that I'm going to pose to all of you. If somebody was new to senior leadership this academic year coming, what would your advice based on what we've been through over the last 16 months? Do you want some thinking time?
I can answer that.
Go on,
turn off WhatsApp notifications. Don't check your emails at home. If it's urgent, they'll call you. Seriously, it's about work-life balance. It has been all-encompassing some days, particularly at the beginning. 5 a.m. till midnight, phone going, WhatsApps going, emails going, updates and ideas, suggestions, opinions, sharing gossip, and just absolutely relentless and no respite from it at all. I'm part of a big group, and so there's a lot of people involved in it, which is a positive thing because people share the good ideas. But because of that, it was pretty relentless for a while. So I think for me, the key for any senior leader is just take some time for yourself, and also accept that you're not always going to get it right, and you will feel a bit down in the dumps someday, and it's okay to, and find someone to lean on yourself as well, because we are human, and I've had my wobbles, and I'm sure everyone else on this screen's had their wobbles too. It's been very difficult some days, and I think you just need someone there to pick you up, take some time out, and don't be afraid to say you need some time out, and brush yourself off and get back again with a smile. and be there for the staff as well. And I think also just accept that they will have tough days and do your very, very best to help them. I mean, I love what Kai was saying about the allowing teachers to leave the country to teach there, to go and see their families. I mean, we haven't been in a position to do that because we've been back more face to face. Some of us literally haven't been at home for 2 years and it's been impossible, but we do everything we can to make sure that happens, because looking after the teachers is key. So as a senior leader, just care about yourself and care about everyone else. I think those are the key things, and don't sweat the small stuff.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Vanessa, any final thoughts for a new leader?
I think, if they can do it now, they can do it at any time, to be quite honest. I think, it's going to be an initiation of fire. But, I think, to reiterate everything that Iain said, you're not alone. I think, sometimes you can feel that you are, and you've got a lot of decisions being forced upon you, and you're not alone. There are so many people out there in the professional community, and just reach out for help and support, and, just be flexible, because whatever you plan, it's not going to happen. I think that's the biggest thing that we've learned from these last 18 months. Whatever we thought was going to happen, predict the unpredictable sort of thing. So I think that's the best key.
Definitely expect the unexpected, because I don't think any leadership course could have prepared anybody. We've all been there in PQHs, etc. Prepared anybody for the past 12 months. Kai?
I'd reiterate about looking after yourself when you're serving others, which is what I think leadership is. You can burn out very quickly. You don't look after yourself. So look after yourself. And that's actually the first thing, because if you're not on top form, you can't support others. So look after yourself and take time out. And everyone have different strategies of working with that. I mean, mine's going running or walking and listening to music and podcasts and stuff, but it'll be different for everybody. But also, I think new leaders, you'll go into a school and you'll see lots of things that you want to change. And it's a bit like coming back to Vanessa's point about being realistic. You can't change everything. However much it's frustrating you can't change everything straight away. So be very measured and take it one step at a time, because otherwise that will also lead to burnout. And be prepared to listen to people. Actually, leadership is not what we're doing now. It's like, talking at people. It's not really about that. It's a very small part of it. I think to be an effective leader, you've really got to really hone your listening skills and really try to tune in to what your staff are thinking and feeling, and what your students are thinking and feeling, what your parents are thinking and feeling, what your governors, and you'll do a lot of listening. So be prepared to do a lot of listening and thinking. And if you don't need to, like Iain was saying about communication, don't feel you've got to rush and make a decision. However much people are shouting at you to do something, or the pressure, make considered decisions over time, listen to a wide range of people if possible, and make considered, thoughtful decisions. So listen, look after yourself, and yes, it can be a lonely job, but there are thousands of school leaders, so it doesn't need to be lonely. So really develop your community, your network, so you can talk to people who can listen to you and support you.
And I think, that's really important. I mean, because of the benefits of technology and social media, there are leaders all over the world on social media that you can connect with as well, even if within your school. And I think what you said about coaching, Kai, as well. If somebody in the chat has wrote, coaching helps us to care for one another. I think everybody should have a coach. Everybody should have somebody to talk to, because it's a lonely old job at times. John, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think it's really reiterate everything that everyone has said up to now, but it's always good to have a plan and then adapt that plan and make it evolve over time. So taking your time, discussing with people like other people have said, and developing that network. Twitter is a great place. Like, I'm sure many people on here right now are on Twitter, but if you are not, get on there and start networking with people, because you can find experts in all sorts of fields, from education to cognitive science and beyond, that you can leverage off of. So I think that's a great tool for just yourself as a leader, whether it's another leader or someone that's more experienced in leadership, or just for some insight into an area that you're less comfortable with or competent with. So I think that's a really key area, is networking a lot and taking your time, like everyone said. Plan, change the plan, evolve the plan, and then share that plan when you are ready with the community and the staff members that are working at your schools.
Absolutely. I've just had to notice something interesting in the chat, actually, and it's directed at you, Kai, about the coaching. I think everybody who I've read their comments couldn't agree more with you regarding the coaching. But they're asking, how do you reconcile that with the inspection system? I'm not sure what the inspection system's like in Muscat, but, you know, this is an inspection system that is data-driven and requires you to comment on how many outstanding teachers that you've got, and you're talking there about ungraded lesson observations.
Well, yeah, we all have to work with the constraints we find ourselves in. But I guess, I mean, well, you can try to change the inspection system, and why not? And because I had a mentor about 15 years ago, a chap called Professor David Hargreaves, and he was a very, very clever guy, taught me a lot, and he brought to the attention of someone who used to work very closely in the Labour government. He was the chief policy director for the Blair administration in the noughties, a chap called Jeff Mulgan, who then went on to be CEO of Nesta in the UK for about, I don't know, 19 years. But this was a chap who was right at the heart of policy making in the UK government for a number of years. And one of his most powerful lessons from that experience, as being the chief policy advisor to a government, his chief lesson was that policy follows practice. And I think that's can be quite a difficult lesson for us to learn as school leaders. But I think if we want to change the way things are done, and many of us do, we're restless leaders, we want to change things, we want things to be even better. The way to do that is not to moan about governments or officials who are in policy-making positions who maybe don't have much experience of education, but is to show them what works in our schools and show them that if a coaching culture is improving the quality of teaching and learning in your school, as opposed to lesson observations, show them the evidence, show them how that's improving teacher morale, show them the innovation and the wonderful teaching that's causing, show them how that practice could then maybe turned into policy. And for me, that's a really challenging but powerful lesson from someone at the heart of government, that policy follows practice. And I don't think we should ever forget that, because I think it's our responsibility to show the policymakers what works in education, because our teachers and our school leaders know and have the opportunity to do that differently. So that's my response to that, which is quite a long response, but I do believe that very strongly.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more, and really important, I think. Iain, you're Ofsted trained.
Yeah, don't keep saying that.
Everybody aware.
Look, someone will kick me out of the webinar. Yeah, I actually became an Ofsted inspector when I was about 35, and I stopped when I was about 38. So that was quite a while ago now. I actually became a bit disillusioned with certain things that were going on with it. But I've inspected in Dubai for many years. But obviously, I've been a principal and been an inspector, so I see it from all sides. And I think, I think inspections are good for schools. I think they do help you to self-evaluate well and improve. But Kai's right. If you do have a rigorous inspection regime, we do in the UAE, very rigorous. We do have to observe lessons. We do have to have data to go with that. You can't try and shy away from that. There are things that are required, like it or not. But you've also got to be a brave leader. And also say, yeah, that's okay. We'll do what's expected, but we're also going to do things a little bit differently. And we're not going to follow a rigorous set of kind of the framework and the rules and the expectations. And what is wrong with coaching to improve teaching and learning? Nothing. And I think most inspectors, I'd like to think, are actually human beings. Yes, they do a job, and yes, they do have to come in and be rigorous and dig deep. But most of them are humans as well, and they've run schools, majority of them as well, and they'll understand it to a large extent, particularly if you explain it properly and show the outcomes and what's happened because of initiatives that you've done. So I think that's really important, and a dialogue with inspectors is key. So I don't think anyone should shy away from, firstly, sticking to what inspections require, but also doing something different too on top of that to make your school beyond outstanding, which is something we do at Raha. We look at having our exceptional journey, and the things which are exceptional for us are nothing to do with the framework. They are beyond the framework, and that's really important for us, doing things differently and our way, and then proving that in an inspection.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I couldn't agree with you more. And time is certainly ticking. So if anybody has a final thought, say it now, or I'm going to start to bring things to a close. Speak now. Okay, I am going to bring it to close. I would like to really take my hat off. Thank you to the panel of speakers. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and to hear your thoughts and ideas. What is now evening, I believe. And to the audience, thank you for giving up your time. There's been a flurry of questions in the question and answer box. So thanks very much for all of your questions. I hope we managed to answer them. And I hope you've enjoyed the discussion and you've taken some new ideas away from you. Here's to a better future. And good luck, everybody, and have a well-earned rest over the summer. I'll pass you back to Sarah and have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Rachael.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachael and the panel. That was amazing, really inspiring and informative. I can tell by all the questions that came in how much everyone was really enjoying what you were saying. So thank you. If any of the audience have any further questions or would like to connect to our speakers, please send an email to marketing@guesseducation.com and we'll pass you along. You'll be also be redirected to a short survey once we end the webinar. So please tell us what you thought. If there's any topics you'd like or suggestions of speakers you'd like to hear from, we'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd like to say thank you again to our sponsor, Wand, and I'll just put the pop-up again here so you can click on that if you'd like to find out more information. And a massive thank you again to our panel and also you, our audience. We hope to see you again soon as we'll be doing more webinars. For the latest information on events and content, please visit guesseducation.com. Take care and bye for now. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.